Look at this counter. It starts at a staggering 85,000, and as we run the numbers from recent reports, it climbs to over 319,000. That is the estimated number of unaccompanied migrant children who are currently missing or completely unaccounted for in the United States. We are bringing you this investigation from Shasta Unfiltered, where we look at the hard facts facing the North State and beyond. When a child crosses the border without a parent, the federal government steps in. By law, the Department of Health and Human Services is mandated to be their ultimate safeguard, tasked with providing care and strictly vetting sponsors to ensure these vulnerable kids end up in safe homes. But inside the Pomona Fairplex emergency intake site in California, that safeguard collapsed. A former caseworker has now come forward with internal details about exactly how the system broke down. By dismantling its own internal guardrails to meet political quotas, the government engineered an intake system that prioritized processing speed over the welfare of those it was legally required to protect. This new testimony comes from a first-generation American whose family emigrated from El Salvador. She's a mother who raised 2 children in Southern California and spent 6 months working on the floor at the Pomona site in 2021. Her claim is direct. The chaotic processing conditions were the result of explicit orders from then HHS Secretary Xavier Bacerra, who demanded staff prioritize speed above all else. To see how this scale of disappearance became possible, we have to look at the specific set of rules implemented at Pomona and the top-down pressure to keep the line moving at any cost. The internal pressure is documented in leaked audio, now being referred to as the Bacerra tapes. In these recordings, the secretary is heard pushing his staff to abandon established vetting protocols to move children out of government care faster. He berated employees for their pace, telling them, if Henry Ford had seen this in his plants, he would have never become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line. This graphic maps how the safety checklist was stripped away. First, basic identification was bypassed. Children arrived with nothing but a sponsor's name on their arm. Then, physical safety checks were eliminated. Staff were expressly forbidden from in-person verification, handling everything over the phone. When you manage a humanitarian intake center like a factory floor, the product is speed. The cost was structurally guaranteeing that kids were handed off to strangers without a shred of verified background data. The reality of those policy choices played out inside makeshift pods at the Fairplex, where groups of 20 to 35 children were housed together with essentially zero privacy and inadequate staff training. The whistleblower noted that releases frequently happened under the cover of darkness. Children were woken up at 2 or 3 in the morning, handed a small bag of belongings, and placed into unknown vehicles with unverified drivers. She recalled one specific case of a 5-year-old girl the staff called Grace. Grace was separated from her 7-year-old sister and left distraught. The older sister was shipped out first. Grace followed later, and caseworkers were never able to confirm that either girl reached a safe destination. Subsequent reporting from the New York Times and investigations by the HHS Inspector General confirmed the outcome of these blind handoffs. Without strict background checks, children were routinely placed directly into the hands of MS-13 gang members, labor traffickers, and unrelated adults. Those hundreds of thousands of missing children represent individual, highly preventable tragedies, and they are the direct mathematical result of a policy that erased the barriers meant to keep them safe. Inside the facility, raising red flags was professionally dangerous. Caseworkers who reported sexual harassment and abuse between older and younger minors were fired. And once a child was released, staff were strictly prohibited from conducting any follow-up welfare checks to see if they were okay. Now, the architect of this rapid release system is asking for a promotion. Xavier Bacerra is currently the Democratic nominee for governor of California, asking voters to hand him the highest office in the very state that housed the Pomona facility. While Bacerra has dismissed the reports of lost children as inaccurate or mere MAGA talking points, his Republican opponent, Steve Hilton, has made exposing this operation a central pillar of his campaign, heavily amplifying the whistleblower testimonies. Voters now face a direct choice on whether a candidate's record of eliminating safety protocols for children is a disqualifying factor. This crisis is not safely in the past. Tens of thousands of unaccompanied children processed through these gutted protocols remain completely unlocated today. It leaves us with questions that demand answers. Where are the children who were driven away from the Fairplex in the middle of the night? And why has accountability for their disappearance been so elusive? If you want to keep digging into the facts, like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and head over to shastaunfiltered.com for more critical analysis. True accountability requires us to look at the human wreckage left behind when politicians decide that speed and optics matter more than protecting the vulnerable.